I'd like to do a review, more of a global strategic review that will lead us to the importance of that group, which is based in Iraq, that has been the hopes of the Iranian people and is now under grave danger in Camp Liberty. The title of our debate today is the role of Iran, the Iranian regime, of course, in Iraq. And we are addressing this not because of academic interest, but because of imminent threats that are posed by the Iranian regime and by the dangers that exist now in Iraq. We look at the rise of ISIS, Daesh in Arabic, which is now in the business of eliminating the moderates in the Sunni community. And that is a result of mistakes that the United States have done over the past, not just 5, maybe more years. The Iranian regime that has penetrated Iraq is not just doing it for the sake of Iraq. Iraq happens to be the basis of this strategic regional outlook. Iraq is vital for the Iranian regime to reach Syria, and Syria is vital to reach Lebanon and Hezbollah. Basically, the Iranian regime has had for many decades strategic designs in the region. So I would like to, first of all, in a couple minutes, talk about and bring back to the American public, the international community, the understanding that the Iranian regime, the Tehran regime, that establishment there, has a long-term view about the region, which it has been implemented over ages, before the Cold War, after the Cold War, before 9/11, after 9/11. In 1987, a few years after the revolution or the takeover by the Khomeini regime, I wrote a book out of Beirut in Arabic before I immigrate later to the States, titled The Long-Term View of the Iranian Regime and Their Strategies. And I wrote another book in 2010 titled The Coming Revolution, which somewhat predicted the Arab Spring. And a last book this year in 2014. So these are books dispersed over 3-4 decades. And what I have made the case for is that the Iranian regime knows exactly what it wants. Generations of Iraqi officials ruling in Tehran under 2 supreme ayatollahs and many leadership of the Pasdaran, Iranian Revolutionary Guards, and ministries of defense, these people have a long-range vision that we are facing off with very short vision, and sometimes with tremendous mistakes. The goals, stated goals actually of the Iranian regime, is to go as far west as they can and as far south as they can. One, the cornerstone was a strategic alliance between the Iranian regime and the Syrian regime. These are very old strategies that have been implemented, and as I said, through Syria into Lebanon, and through Lebanon into Hezbollah. Now, in order to accompany this policy of expansion, regional expansion, what the Iranian regime needed, and I made the case in 87 and in 2010 and again in 2014, they need a weapon of deterrence so that expansion can be protected. They need an umbrella. How can this umbrella be achieved? With the nuclear power. They are devising and designing over the years a forest or a fleet of missiles. And those missiles, as I always argue in the media here in our debate, are not designed to send flowers and roses. What would long-range missiles, middle-range missiles be delivering? Of course, the type of weapons, including the nuke and others. We have learned over the years that only a strong, organized, centralized, multi-ethnic, pluralistic opposition can be the deterrence and the reversal of the Iranian regime. There are no other alternatives. Let me be very honest about it and clear. I have always been pushing back in academia and the media here in Europe that this regime is popular, that we have been pushing against a regime that has popular support. Well, that lie was shattered in June of 2009. People saw on YouTube. I did not invent the YouTube, did not invent those. We saw on YouTube millions of Iranians marching. Whatever was the reason, I'm not interested if they were marching because some problems with the electoral system. They were marching against the regime. Somewhere between 60 to 65%, according to some research, of those who were demonstrating were under the age of 21 or 20. You know what that means. These are teenagers plus a couple years. This is the future of Iran. If there is any measurement, any poll, it was taken then during that march. So when you have those numbers, and then of course in the early days we saw that many were females, young girls, and of course the example of Neda and the other females who have been brutalized during the demonstrations, you are giving the evidence, this is the evidence that the Iranian people is ready for change. They were talking to us, and actually they were hoping that we in the international community and here in Washington, in the United States government, will be standing by them. Unfortunately, we did not, and that was a tremendous loss. They would be fearful of a centrally organized, efficient organization that can actually mobilize these masses. And if a change occurs, there is another battle after a change or during a change, and we saw it throughout the Arab Spring. The Iranian regime knows that there will be other waves of demonstrations. You cannot stop those demonstrations. What the Iranian regime has been trying to do, and that's crucial for the understanding of why Tehran wants the head of the MAK. They are afraid of that only centralized organization, which at the next season of spring in Iran will be the one to seize the opportunity historically and then prepare for a transition. They are afraid of the transition. So they beheaded ahead of time. They intercepted ahead of time. This explains the entire Iranian policy in Iraq, among other things. The United States, that's my third section, unfortunately did not have that vision, the one that I have just developed, unfortunately. The past two, if not more, administrations. Now, between 2003 and 2008, we were in Iraq. We needed to continue the work. We needed to work and partner with civil society in Iraq. We needed to form a coalition of the moderates across Iraq, not just build buildings and, nice highways. There was something else. There was something else to be done. Now, between 2003 and 2008, we should have, and we could have, strategically supported the Iranian opposition, the exiles based in Iraq. Not one Ashraf, 10 Ashrafs. That's what we needed to have in Iraq. But there is a war of ideas. There is a war of ideas. The Iranian regime, and I am making this statement now as a historian because we're 10 years or so after, the Iranian regime was able to outmaneuver our efforts while we were in Iraq. The Iranian regime was able to push for its own candidates and politicians, many of whom, by the way, were in exile in Iran. So they know the importance of exiles. They had them. The current prime minister, the many leaders around him, who were they? Where were they coming from? From the exile in Iran, where they had a partnership with the Iranian regime for many years. So they know that an exiled community and leadership, when they come back, they know exactly how they are going to be dealing with. So now, in 2009, so to be fair on all our policies, from 2009 to 2014, we continue to commit strategic mistakes, but of other kinds. In 2009, and that's a crucial moment, when Washington sort of told the Iranian regime, first through a letter, right? Early November. We sent a letter, the president sent a letter to the Grand Ayatollah Khamenei. Forgot about that letter. He did a speech in Cairo, and then there was another letter sent to Ayatollah Khamenei for the engagement. Then a few days later, there was that huge demonstration, and we said we don't want to be seen as meddling in Iran domestic affairs, to be very accurate. So if you are in Iran, how would you read that? We got a letter from the United States saying we want to engage with you. Then we had 2 million people rising, and we got a statement saying we don't want to do anything about that. What would that mean? A green light. We're not going to intervene with the Iranian, neither opposition nor people, when they will rise against you, because we want to engage you. And in 2013, in the fall of 2013, the result of that policy of engagement was now clear. So in 2011, coming now home to today, in 2011, when the Arab Spring had already begun across the board, we had an opportunity in Syria between March 11 and the end of that year. We didn't do much about it because we were concerned about our withdrawal from Iraq, to be on time and to be not hinging on other stuff. All right. When we withdrew from Iraq, the entire question has been, who did we transfer real power to? That is actually the cause of what is happening today. When we withdrew from Iraq, we transferred power to a collection of politicians, though the year before in 2010, as we know, there were legislative elections, and those elections told us that the largest party, if I'm not wrong, within the Shia polity was Mr. Alawi's party, at least in terms of proportional. Instead, we helped the Mr. Maliki coalition. We pressured the Kurds and pressured the Sunni moderates. Bottom line, we transferred the real commands and controls of power in Iraq to a partner of the Iranian regime. So everything that happened since 2012, January 2012, till now is normal. Iran has obtained Iraq after we withdrew. And when they obtain Iraq, what is the first thing they would want to do? The very first thing, to eliminate the Iranian opposition in Iraq. I mean, you don't need to be a political scientist. It's clear. If I was the Khomeinist regime, the first thing I would call Maliki, get them out. Sure, get them out. And it took few months, it's in your archives, that Ashraf was dismantled. And the push has begun. There are wishful thinking, what we would have loved to see happening in Iraq, a coalition of the moderates. Now we have Mr. Maliki and his allies in control of central Iraq. We need to reverse the policy on the Iranian regime and start putting pressure on the regime. We need to ask Mr. Maliki to resign. Time is for Mr. Maliki to resign. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.